Good afternoon. I call to order the August 8th, 2023 regular meeting of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission. For the record, my name is Barbara Howard and I chair the commission. Just a reminder to please silence your cell phones and any other electronic devices to speak clearly into the microphone when speaking at the dais or giving testimony. Would the clerk please call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum?
Commissioner Bjornberg.
Present.
Booty is absent. Chair Howard.
Present.
Melblom.
Present.
Nystrom.
Present.
Vice Chair Sandbolt.
Here.
Maston.
Present.
Struthers.
Present.
And Vander Eyck is absent. There are 7 members present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect we do have quorum and that Commissioners Booty and Vander Eyck both provided proper notice that they have a conflict this afternoon, so their absences are excused. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for this meeting. We'll work from the agendas that are available over by the clerk. I'll go through the agenda and sort out any items to be withdrawn, continued to a future meeting, discussed, or to be put on a consent agenda to be approved as recommended by staff and without further discussion. Item number 4 is 3124 3rd Avenue South, Ward 8. Please note that in the staff report for this, it said Ward 9. It's actually Ward 8. So item number 4, 3124 3rd Avenue South, Ward 8. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness. Item number 4 will be on consent unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. Item number 5, 4709 Emerson Avenue South, Ward 13. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness. Item number 5 will be discussed. Item number 6, 110 Fifth Avenue Southeast, Ward 3. This application is also for a certificate of appropriateness. Item number 6 will be on consent unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendation. Item number 7, 2901 Brookwood Terrace, Ward 13. Item number 7 will be discussed. The application is for a designation for landmark status. So the proposed agenda, the consent agenda, will include the following 2 items. Item number 4, 3124 3rd Avenue South, Ward 8, and item number 6, 110 Fifth Avenue Southeast, Ward 3. Is there any opposition from commissioners to the staff recommendations for these 2 items? Is there anyone on the public who wishes to speak in opposition to these 2 items? Hearing no opposition to placing these 2 items on consent, we will approve these consent items in one motion at the start of the meeting. The following items will have staff presentation, public comment, and commission discussion and action. Item number 5, 4709 Emerson Avenue South, Ward 13. Item number 7, 2901 Brookwood Terrace, Ward 13. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the proposed agenda?
Nystrom so moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Nystrom. Is there a second?
Second, Struthers.
Thank you, Commissioner Struthers. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Our next order of business will be to approve the minutes from our July 11th, 2023 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Sandbolt so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandbolt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Melblom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
Bjornberg abstains.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. The minutes are approved. Before I open the hearing to public comments, let me summarize the process for conducting a public hearing. First, we'll act on the consent agenda items that we just set. Once items on the consent agenda are approved, the commission is done with those items, and applicants may contact the planning staff about next steps. After the consent agenda items are approved, we'll take each of the remaining agenda items in order. Planning staff will present its report, and commissioners may ask questions of staff, and then I'll open it to the public as part of the public hearing, and we will hear from the applicant, and commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. After that, we'll invite public comment. If you wish to speak, we need you to do 2 things. Be sure to sign up on the sheet over by the clerk. If you haven't done this already, you can do so afterwards, and when you come up to testify, you must state your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments specific to the application before us today. If you have any materials to hand out, please give them to our committee clerk as well, so they can be distributed to the commission and entered into the record. Do not approach the commissioners on the dais. After the public comments are complete, I will close the hearing, and commissioners will deliberate on and act on the applications before us. So I will now open the public hearing on the consent agenda items. That's item number 4, 3124 3rd Avenue South, Ward 8, and item number 6, 110 5th Avenue Southeast, Ward 3. Again, do any commissioners oppose the staff recommendations for these items?
I do not oppose, but I need to abstain from the vote on item number 6.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sandbolt. We'll do the consent agenda in 2 motions then. Any other commissioners oppose staff recommendations for these items? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who oppose staff recommendations for these 2 items? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing on the consent agenda items. May I have a motion to approve staff findings and recommendations for item number 4, that's 3124 3rd Avenue South, Ward 8.
Melblom makes the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Melblom. Is there a second?
Bjornberg seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? All right, we'll move on to item number 6. May I have a motion to approve staff findings and recommendations for item number 6? That is 110 5th Avenue Southeast, Ward 3.
Nystrom so moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Nystrom. Is there a second?
Maston seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
Sandbolt, abstention.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sample. Both of these items are approved as recommended by staff on the agenda. Applicants may contact planning staff about next steps. So now we'll go into the discussion items. Our first item is item number 5, 4709 Emerson Avenue South, Ward 13. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness. The staff report is presented by Rob Skalecki.
Thank you, Chair Howard, and good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Rob Skalecki. I'm a senior city planner in the Historic Preservation section of CPED. Today I'm presenting a certificate of appropriateness for the property located at 4709 Emerson Avenue South in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District. The subject property includes 2 contributing resources in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District. The dwelling was built by contractor Andrew Stenvig for the Security Land and Investment Company. The dwelling is 2 stories, clad in stucco and half timbering, with a steep gable roof showing Gothic and Tudor Revival motifs. An April 4th, 1909 section from the Minneapolis Sunday Tribune records the issuance of the dwelling's permit and notes Charles S. Sedgwick as the dwelling's architect. Sedgwick is recognized as a master architect by the city of Minneapolis, and the design for 4709 Emerson Avenue South appears consistent with his known work at that time. The Security Land and Investment Company was issued a building permit for a 1-story plaster garage, which was also built by contractor Andrew Stenvig, but without an architect in 1910. And you can see that by 1912, it was shown here on the Sanborn Fire Insurance map on the right. In June 2023, a building permit was submitted for a new garage construction at the parcel, and staff noticed that the applicant that proposed the project, that this project required a certificate of appropriateness, and we notified the applicant of that. The applicant then at that time in discussion with staff noted that the garage had already been demolished. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 1-story garage in place of the previous garage that had been demolished. The new garage will be 24 feet by 20 feet and include a 9/12 front gable roof pitch that's closer to the steep slope of the gables that are found on the dwelling. The new cladding is planned to be hardy cement stucco panels installed through fasteners and caulking. 2 overhead doors are planned, so one is for the west, which is the street-facing elevation, and another is for the south, which is the side elevation that accesses the backyard area. A human-scale metal service door will also be installed on the south elevation, and the new roof materials will be common contemporary asphalt composite shingles. The Department of Community Planning and Economic Development has analyzed the application to demolish the existing detached garage and construct a new garage at 4709 Emerson Avenue South in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District based on the following findings. And I will focus on the destruction of historic resource findings as well as the evaluation of the new garage under the design guidelines for the district as part of this presentation. So staff notes that the property owners have demolished the garage without HPC approval, but submitted evidence shows deterioration was present. You can see some of that here on the left in the photos of the previous garage. However, the building did not appear fully unsafe or dangerous that would warrant immediate demolition based on the photos submitted. So reasonable alternatives to the demolition exist. The garage probably could be repaired or reused, but the garage's significance is limited and its economic value here is minimal. The demolition of the garage has not affected the significance of the dwelling or the historic district, and staff believes the applicant meets findings for destruction of historic resource in a certificate of appropriateness application. As for the guidelines, the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District guidelines adopted in August 2021 specify distinct guidelines for new garages and new garage construction. The new garage is planned to have a similar massing and appearance to the previous historic garage. The applicant is planning for the garage to be 1-story, detached, and located in the previous location of the garage, which is set back behind the dwelling on the parcel. The applicant is planning to use hardy cement stucco panels as a siding material with a standard front gable pitch that is a bit more compatible with the steep pitch found on the dwelling. This meets the guideline requiring that siding, trim, roof shingles, and overall massing should be compatible to the main house. The guidelines also note that vinyl and metal siding should not be approved, and the roof pitch, as I mentioned, on the garage should be compatible with that of the main house, which the proposed design meets. The applicant is planning a 2-car garage door, which had existed in the previous garage. The new door will be metal. The noted model is the CHI plank, which is a door to have a patterned appearance that would be false wood grain. So metal finish, a patterned appearance to kind of copy wood grain. Unpainted wood grain is not a character-defining feature of the property, and it didn't exist here historically. Much of the wood on the dwelling is painted. Staff has conditioned there that this instead be simplified with a finish that does meet the design guidelines. So the design guidelines require that the garage doors should be designed to be compatible with the house and the historic district, and they should have a painted finish. The Department of Community Planning and Economic Development recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission adopt staff findings for the application by Joe Sullivan at the property located at 4709 Emerson Avenue South in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District, and recommend that the HPC approves the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the existing detached garage, construct a new garage at 4709 Emerson Avenue South in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District, subject to the following findings. And then there's one, which is that new metal overhead doors shall not have a false wood pattern and should instead be a solid color or painted finish. And conditions of approval number 2 and 3 are standard conditions of approval for a certificate of appropriateness. But I'm here as staff to take any questions. I do believe that the property owner and applicant are here, and we're trying to get here on time to be able to present a case against that first condition of approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Commissioners, other questions for staff? Commissioner Struthers?
Mr. Skulecki, your report on page 1 says that the request was to demolish the existing garage and construct a new garage. Does that mean that they asked to demolish it and then demolished it without approval?
Chair Howard, Commissioner Struthers, the property owner and the contractor let staff know when staff received the permit that the work had already been done to demolish the garage. So in the city of Minneapolis, you technically don't need a permit to demolish a garage. That's properties that are in historic districts are still subject to regulations, so it's something that the property owner should have been aware of.
So,
But
go ahead.
the report is written to, we have a standard way to write the report, so we understand that the garage had been demolished at the time, and we were evaluating it given the information we were given from the applicant to go forward with a new design.
So the applicant didn't request to demolish the garage, that wasn't their request to the HPC made before they demolished it? Is that what you're telling me?
So as part of the certificate of appropriateness application that includes demolition or destruction of a historic resource, those findings have to be made, and that is the wording that staff uses to evaluate that.
So I'm just trying to understand, they didn't know that they had to get a certificate of approval to demolish the garage before they demolished it?
I believe that's correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Struthers. Any other questions for staff? I have one. Other commissions, when things are demolished without approval, when contributing buildings are demolished without approval, have required that the demolished building be rebuilt. Has that ever been part of the discussion on this? Or was it just because they didn't need the permit to demolish, and now we're just trying to make sure that the new building is appropriate for the district as a whole?
Chair Howard, that's not something that is, required for, in the city's ordinance, that you would rebuild something that's demolished. And in this situation, in any situation where there's unpermitted work, where changes happen in historic districts or to landmarks, staff works with zoning enforcement to make sure that the correct enforcement is being addressed in that situation. So in this situation, the correct application is a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
So the applicant and property owner worked with staff to submit that retroactively.
I appreciate that, and I know that we don't have any penalties for doing things without a certificate of appropriateness here, so there's no other means to deal with that. But any other questions for staff? And the applicant is not here, you said? They're on their way?
They may be here, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you for the report. I'll now open the public hearing for the item, and if the applicant's here and would like to speak, come on up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francesco Vittoro Raimondi. I live in 4709 Emerson Avenue South in Minneapolis. I purchased this home last year in August, and I just heard, and thank you for the explanation, that the garage was built in 1910. The garage decided to cave in this winter with the heavy snow, which we discovered after the snow had melted, to the point that the insurance is paying for the full rebuild, obviously, of the garage in the same conditions. Given, and I admit my ignorance to the staff, that I was not aware that there was a particular permit required. You shared a picture, Mr. Koleski. There's a couple more that I don't know if I ever shared with you, that show from the inside how the beams had already broken. And so that with more rain and stuff, there was a real possibility that the roof would collapse. The insurance would have not agreed to a full rebuild of the garage otherwise, if they felt it could be worth repairing. So when we demolished it and I decided to invest in my property, to make a better garage, same dimensions pretty much, but as discussed, if you've seen the pictures, the roof of the garage is nothing like the rest of the house, and so we want the pitch to mirror the pitch of the roof of my house. And also talking about the door, if you could see in the picture, there was a white door, that it's still there, and that I could have just re-put in. And again, in the spirit of investing on my property, I chose to go for a much more expensive garage. I shared some pictures, I don't know if they're in this computer, the document I sent last night, or else I have a memories drive. I have taken some pictures of, because the picture you have, I think it's a previous one, but I sent a document last night with the that's the one so the one on the top is actually not the right, but the one on the bottom is the proposal. It looks, I have the plan if you want it. It will show you what the garage door looks like. And the reason why I think it's superior to the solid wood color is, to the one end, is more expensive. To the other end, in a document that I sent last night, you can see that there are some other houses that have exactly the same door, which inspired me to choose that one because it looks beautiful.
If you'd like to take that and hand it to the clerk, she can pass that.
So I actually have here, I nearly forgot. And sorry, it's kind of an interesting situation for me here. Appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah.
This is the actual mahogany. I think the one with the original. So it doesn't have the stains up here. And then I also have a document I can share. And again, but I don't want to abuse of your time. But it's the document I sent last night. Okay. I should have a glass of water. Okay, can I just remove it? So, I don't even know if you can read this, but what I'm showing here is there are two locations where the same exact door is found, and they are outside, I believe, of the historical district. There are two properties facing Lake Harriet, and this is one. It's exactly the same garage door. And here's another one. This is me taking pictures, so they're not the best. I also wanted to emphasize again, this is the door that currently I have. I could have just chosen to recycle that door. I'm spending $6,000 on a much better door because I am very honored to be in that area and I want it to look as good as possible. And again, this is a picture of exactly the door that will go in the garage. So I don't want to abuse any more of your time. I have made my case, and I hope you will consider that I can have this door without. But the alternative, we can paint solid wood on top of it and accept the conditional approval.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Commissioners. Are there questions for the applicant? Commissioner Struthers?
Thank you, Chair Howard. My question is whether I understood your testimony correctly. Did you testify that you did not know that there was a requirement to get a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the garage when you demolished it?
I was not aware. I knew that there was a city permit that was required, but I was not aware of this process.
So your answer is yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Are there any others here who wish to speak either for or against this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, let's discuss. So I'm frustrated. How's that for our beginning statement? We had at our last meeting signage that was taken down without permission. We had in this package of information 2 demolitions that were done without certificates of appropriateness, and I'm just frustrated. And I think there's something to be said about maybe we need to talk about how people who just buy houses learn that they're in a historic district and know that this process exists. That's a discussion for a retreat sometime, maybe, but maybe not for right now. But it's frustrating. Commissioner Melblom.
Thank you, Chair Howard. Yeah, I agree. It's frustrating. I will buy into the applicant's comments that he didn't understand it, so I don't want to hold that against him. But the issue in front of us is, should the doors be solid color or should they be the wood? And I'm more inclined to defer to the staff on this and agree with them. And I would just say, I think if the applicant really, if the door's been purchased and he wants a solid color door, you could just paint the door. You know, I think it would actually look nicer if it was a dark color personally, but that's more of an opinion than anything else.
Thank you, Commissioner Melblom. Other thoughts? Commissioner Bjornberg.
I don't know that I have anything really great to add to this. I guess I would say I definitely echo that frustration, and especially sort of hearing that, you know, to demolish a garage, you don't need a permit regularly. And like, I'm just like, that feels very confusing to navigate as a property owner, to understand that if you live in a historic district, you know, that might not necessarily apply to you the same way. That sort of aside, I really do appreciate the staff recommendation about the door. I do think that a solid color door is more appropriate in this. So, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. Other thoughts, or would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Melblom.
I make a motion that we accept the certificate of appropriateness as proposed with conditions 1, 2, and 3.
I would recommend you take a look at the agenda and look at the recommended motion so that we can get the demolition in there as well.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I recommend that we, I need to go back to that. Hold on. That we accept the certificate for appropriateness to demolish the existing detached garage and construct a new garage at 4709 Emerson Avenue South in the Lyndhurst Residential Historic District, subject to the staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you, Commissioner Melblom. Is there a second?
Struthers seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Struthers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Bjornberg,
Aye.
Chair Howard,
Aye.
Maston,
Aye.
Melblom,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sandbolt,
Aye.
Struthers.
Aye.
There are 7 ayes.
That motion passes. And we'll move on to our next. The next item is item number 7, 2901 Brookwood Terrace. Ward 13, this application is for designation for landmark status. Staff report is presented by Rob Skalecki. Your samples are up here, sir. Thank you for bringing those.
Thank you, Chair Howard, and good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'm Rob Skalecki, Senior City Planner in the Historic Preservation section of Planning. This is a landmark designation for the property located at 2901 Brookwood Terrace, historically known as the Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House. The current property owners for 2901 Brookwood Terrace submitted a landmark nomination for their property in 2021. On September 28th, 2021, the HPC approved the nomination, placed the property under interim protection, and called for a designation study to be drafted. CPED staff conducted research and compiled the designation study document, and a final draft of the designation study was completed in May 2023. The subject property includes a single-family dwelling built in 1927 for the family of Wayne and Gertrude Kelly. The building was designed by local architect Roland R. Wilkin and built by Minneapolis contractors Nelson and Johnson. The dwelling was designed in the Spanish eclectic style and is emblematic of this second wave of Spanish design influence in Minneapolis home building that emerged in the 1920s. The home's arched openings, textured exterior stucco cladding, wrought iron decorations, stone entries surround tile roofing, low-pitched tipped roof with minimal eaves, arched reliefs and openings, spiraled columns, ornate stone balustrade and patio, arched corbel table, clay chimney caps, and the building's association to the lot's natural environment remain as some of the property's key indicators of the Spanish eclectic style. These defining elements combine to showcase obvious contrast among materials, textures, and color. The character of the style is based in contrast between the simple and the ornate, relying heavily on asymmetry in roof form, fenestration, and decoration. And these design elements are based in centuries of Spanish architectural history, reflecting elements of Roman, Gothic, Moorish, medieval, and/or Renaissance features of Iberian architecture. Unlike many other examples of Spanish eclectic homes in Minneapolis, the subject property has been shown to retain a high degree of historic integrity and original architectural features, as confirmed through historic permits, maps, photos, and a copy of the dwelling's original drawings. Staff finds that the property has significance under Criterion 4 in Chapter 599-210 in the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances, since the property embodies distinctive characteristics of the Spanish eclectic architectural style. The Code of Ordinances also requires the Planning Director to submit all proposed landmark designations to Planning Commission and the State Historic Preservation Office for their review and comment, and SHPO concurred with the designation study findings and recommendations in a letter dated July 18th, 2023, and Planning Commissioners commented favorably on the designation of the property, concurring with the designation study findings at the July 20th, 2023 City Planning Commission Committee of the Whole meeting. The following policies of Minneapolis 2040 do apply to the designation of the Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House, which are Policy 60, which is intrinsic value of properties, increase the awareness, understanding, and appreciation of the economic and intrinsic value of older properties important to the city's heritage. Policy 92, identify and evaluate historic resources, and Policy 93, stewarding historic properties. The Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House is a textbook example of the Spanish eclectic style dwelling, a style of dwelling that's not currently represented in the city as an individual landmark. The property retains very good historic integrity and communicates its history as a dwelling that represents Spanish design influence in single-family residences of the 1920s and 1930s. The landmark designation study includes a brief background context on Spanish eclectic dwelling design in Minneapolis, and this depth of information had not existed in one document previously. Designation would allow for the increased awareness, appreciation, intrinsic, and potential economic value of this unique piece of the city's architectural and social history. Historic preservation regulations that come with historic designation would encourage the retention of a significant community resource. The designation of the property will have no impact on the surrounding area, since the Brookwood addition has included and still does include many single-family dwellings, actually since it was created nearly 100 years ago. The majority of the dwellings that currently exist in the Brookwood addition are those that were built between 1925 and 1930. And the landmark designation of the property nominated by the current property owners will ensure that the dwelling is protected in its current state, with potential further changes to the exterior of the dwelling required to be sensitive to the property's historic materials, significance, and character. And with that, the Department of Economic Development recommends that the Heritage Department of Community Planning and Economic Development recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission and City Council adopt staff findings for the local designation of the Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House, located at 2901 Brookwood Terrace, and recommend that the HPC recommends that the City Council approve the local designation of the Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House located at 2901 Brookwood Terrace. And I'm available as staff for any questions, but the property owners, I believe, are here as well and may like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? I don't see any. Thank you. I will now open the public hearing for the item, and I understand the owners are here. Would you like to say anything? Yes. Come on up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jane Simon, and I live at 2901 Brookwood Terrace in Minneapolis. And the reason I would like to have this property designated heritage property is that in our neighborhood, there are a number of buildings that have sold in the last few years. People go in, gut them, redo them, and this is a wonderful house. It's not only beautiful on the outside, but it's full of those same arches and different wrought iron features all over the place. And there's some of them that had been taken out when we bought the house, and we've restored them to where they were. I understand that historic designation doesn't protect the interior, but I'm doing what I can to protect the house. Eventually, we will have to sell it, and we would like to know that it's not going to be destroyed.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very good way of looking at stewardship of the house. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the owner? I don't see any. Thank you so much for those comments.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak for or against this designation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners? Commissioner Nystrom, you look ready to say something.
I'm excited about this. I love seeing properties come up for designation, and it's a beautiful home. And I was going to make a motion right away, but I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything.
Vice Chair Sandbolt, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you, Chair Howard. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming forward and going through this process. It's not an easy process, and to take the stewardship of the home to the level of coming in front of us and saying we want to make sure that this property is preserved and we believe that it has a place in history that needs to be saved is truly admirable. So thank you so much. After a night with a couple of demolitions on the agenda that are heartbreaking and hard for us, it is so great to be redeemed by a couple of people who really have shown true stewardship of a historic property. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Vice Chair. I agree wholeheartedly, and I just love the history of this, and the architecture is stunning, and the interior. We don't usually even talk about the interiors unless they're public interiors, but the interior looks stunning as well, and you both have taken good care of the building. Any other comments? Commissioner Melvin.
I want to pile on to what Commissioner Sandbolt said. It's a beautiful home, and I'd like to point out that so many of the Renaissance and Spanish Revival style homes are often neglected, and they are stripped down because for a lot of people, they've gone out of fashion. They're just stunningly beautiful. There's so many beautiful examples of them in the city that I am just thrilled that you want to designate and protect your home for perpetuity. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Commissioner Meldblum. One last call for comments. Did you want to do your motion?
Sure.
Commissioner Nystrom?
I make a motion that the HPC recommends City Council approve the local designation of the Wayne and Gertrude Kelly House located at 2901 Brookwood Terrace.
Thank you, Commissioner Nystrom. Is there a second?
Maston seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Maston. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Bjornberg,
Aye.
Chair Howard,
Aye.
Maston,
Aye.
Melblum,
Aye.
Nystrom,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sambolt,
Aye.
Struthers.
Aye.
There are 7 ayes.
Thank you. That motion passes. And I should also put in a thanks to staff for putting together a nice designation report for us. That concludes our public hearing items. Commissioners, staff, any announcements or commission business to discuss? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Howard. Andrea Burke, Supervisor for the Historic Preservation Team in CPED. Chair Howard, you took the thank you before I was able to say it, but thank you. I also wanted to thank staff and Rob Skalecki for spending a lot of time on evenings and weekends writing this study. So thank you for putting together such extensive research and writing and so on and so forth. So with that, I can't remember if I gave the update of this at the last HPC meeting. Forgive me, I can't remember, but I'm going to say it again. The appeals, we had received 2 appeals for 5005 Lyndale Avenue South, as well as for 2900 Hennepin Avenue for the Uptown Theater signage. Those were appealed, or HPC's decision was appealed to council, and council did uphold both, or no, excuse me, they upheld the appeal for 2900 Hennepin, so they sided with the applicant and not HPC, but for 5005 Lyndale, they sided with HPC and not the applicant. The applicant for 5005 Lyndale was somebody a member from the neighborhood who was in support of a designation study for the area. So there is no designation study happening for that area, but the signage for the Uptown Theater will get new letters on the tower sign. So I wanted to provide that update to you. And then we had received only 2 public comments for the Washburn Fair Oaks design guidelines. Exactly.
Sorry.
So
I saw my face.
staff is taking that recent draft. We did receive some other internal comments that we reviewed a little also in more detail. So we are taking that draft and reviewing it to decide on any final tweaks or changes to that document before we bring it through for your viewing as a discussion item. So wanted to give the update on that. And now for conference news. Before I jump into the one, it's more public now because I took an RCA to council, but the State Historic Preservation Office would like to partner with the City of Minneapolis to host the Forum 2026 conference for the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, at least to submit a bid to have Minneapolis host this conference. So we have agreed, and we'll work with the State Historic Preservation Office to submit that bid. We have the support of the city on this, so it is not final. It's not saying it will be here, but to let you know that that is in the works, and that the proposal is for just Minneapolis to host the conference. Just make that what it is. And then also, as I had let you know, we are, every year there is the Preserve Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office conference, and this year it will be in Mankato, and it's the end of September. And that there are scholarships available for staff and commissioners to attend. Hopefully you all received my message on that. But please let me know by next Friday, August 18th, if you are interested in that, in attending, and we can add your name to a list in submitting request and application for scholarships, which we will apply for. But do let me know by then. And as I noted, as contrary to previous years, the conference cost will not cover everything, but it will cover a large portion of it. And I am hoping, and I'm much more hoping, that we've worked out the kinks in terms of reimbursement. So there are some extra steps in place, and hopefully we will not go through what happened last time. So that concludes my updates. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I would encourage commissioners to go look at newspaper articles about the Uptown Theater discussion if you haven't already. Some of the questions we had were answered at the city council meeting. Any other commissioners have any announcements? Seeing none, let's see. With that, we have completed all items on the agenda for this meeting. I will ask members and staff one more time if there are any matters to come before the meeting. There being no other business to come before this meeting, and without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. The next regular meeting of the Heritage Preservation Commission is August 22nd, 2023. I'm going to verify. Yes, August 22nd, 2023. Thank you, everyone.
Effects of climate change, and biochar is one of the strategies that help us do both.